All right. We're here for another episode of Bad Ideas with Lee Murray, marketing strategist at Harvard Murray Consulting. Hey, Lee.
How's it going?
It's going good. Awesome to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. This is
I've been
fun.
begging Lee to do this with me for the last couple of weeks. He's a very, very busy guy. Super sharp. I'm gotten to do some
Yeah.
work for him. So excited to have us together.
Cool.
Yeah. What's up? Just real quick. Anything super exciting on your plate now that you wanted to share that you're building?
Yeah, actually, so I have a consulting advisory company, which is I work with mid-level brands and their teams, marketing leaders and CEOs, helping them with strategy essentially. Um, and so I've got that going on, and then I have a content agency, Signal Media, that we produce video and podcast content for similar companies, but we're really heavy in the higher ed space. So we're really focused on that right now. And it's funny enough, you should ask, because this morning I was kind of plotting out this like 2-year plan for building both of those businesses simultaneously that are connected. So I think the goal is like to do the work. And this is always how I had it envisioned, but like do the work inside of Signal. So it's like you're actually deploying sales, models and marketing campaigns, and you're start trying to sell new clients and bring them on from a B2B service business, going out and finding new companies. And then essentially I'm going to document all of that and show it on the consulting side to show other business, CEOs and marketing leaders, here's how you build essentially what will be an account creation machine, an account creation model. So I'm going to, I want to like challenge myself to go to the next level and say, I need to like really do this for real. Like I've done it, my whole career here and there. And I've had other companies and worked for other big companies and small companies. But now it's like, okay, I've got all the knowledge. I've got the experience now. I want to build my business, the content agency, and then document it to show other companies how to do it. So like that literally just all came together in my mind this morning.
I feel like we're starting off the Bad Ideas podcast with some really good ideas, which is kind of counterintuitive, but that's what we get when we have you use it.
Maybe we'll end up back with the good idea at the time we get to the end.
Yeah, go full circle. All right. So without further ado, the review of the operations here. So we'll take a look at an awful business idea. You and I'll do our best not to laugh and explain as clearly as we can why it's a bad idea. And when we run out of bad things to say about this, it's our responsibility to turn it into a good one.
Yeah.
So we're really going to do some mental flexing, but I think that's why I'm pumped to have you here. I'm pumped that anyone watching can see that like you're building multiple companies now. You're a marketer on top of that. It's a lot of good experience to draw from.
Yeah, right. It's fun.
All right. So let's take a look
on the screen.
Yeah, it'll pop up to everyone who's watching. So we'll flip it up for you and I over here in this Google thing.
Okay, cool.
So Bing, we've got the bad idea. It's a Magic 8-Ball executive decision maker app for Apple Watch. Yes.
So I gotta tell you, what it makes me think of first is there's like a clip in an Office episode from Michael Scott using the Magic 8-Ball to make a decision. But it's just a bad idea. Like, I mean, like one of those Magic 8-Balls you get from Spencer's or whatever. Like, and it's just like, okay, should I do whatever? And then it tells you the answer that you don't want to hear. It's like, do it again, right? Like that's all that is in my mind. It'd be cool to see on an app. Like I said, to see it on an Apple Watch, to see it like, the visual graphic part of it, but not a good idea at all for making decisions.
Yeah. My mind is going immediately to hiring and firing decision.
Yes.
Because I think people feel the most ambivalent about those. Like I have this employee and usually they like the person, but the performance is really bad or something. We have to part ways, and you wind up using a Magic 8-Ball app to decide whether or not you stay or don't. And it could cost you ungodly amounts of money and cause problems for your team and, perpetuate toxicity. It is an awful, awful idea.
You know what else it makes me think of crazy, kind of crazily is, if you go back and look, I think you look it up on YouTube, Will Ferrell, when he auditioned for Saturday Night Live, his audition tapes are out there now. And he has this one little skit he does where he's an executive And he's like at his desk, it's a big desk, and he answers the phone and he's making all these big, like a big executive. And then he puts the phone down and he turns into basically like a cat and he's like playing with a toy. It's like, it's like so stupid. It's hilarious, but it's so stupid. And that's kind of what makes me think of like, if this were actually a product and, like it makes me think of like those, like what's happening behind the curtain at Apple, right? Like, you've got these big name people that are running these huge companies. Are they really just flipping a coin? Like, decisions like, they're not. I mean, they have board of directors and they have all these people, so they have to be accountable. But like when it comes down to hard decisions, are they just like flipping a coin and saying, oh, I just need to move on, And I could see that this was what that would do. It would almost be like, oh, this is cool. It's kind of like novelty, but I'm actually going to use it. That'd be bad.
Yeah. Well, thinking this is kind of like a good version of the bad idea, but imagine people in the venture capital space using a Magic 8-Ball decision maker app to decide on like investment decisions. 90% failure rate, they still have to do their own diligence, but like generally most funds, especially now in this market, are failing. So imagine they started using a Magic 8-Ball app to like A/B decisions on financial investments.
Yeah, that would be bad.
And improve their outcome. The other piece, just major feature flaw, if it's on your Apple Watch, you have to shake your hand to get it to make it. So everyone walking around going like this, is indecisive. So it's like a label that you don't have the ability to reason and come to a good decision on your own.
You almost have to like close the door so no one can see you shake your arm.
Yeah. Yeah. Like your Will Ferrell skit. If you're on the phone, you can shake your arm all you want. No one's going to know. But, you're on a Zoom meeting with an important stakeholder going like this. It's like, oh, this is probably not a good idea.
Yeah. No, I don't think the Magic 8-Ball has ever been, a legitimate source of truth for anyone making any decisions. So, having it on an app, even though it probably look really cool, and being titled for executives would just be really bad, because I can see people actually trying to use this, whether it's known or unknown.
Yeah. Well, I was reading, what were we going to say?
Well, I was going to say, we're trying to do good things for this, but it depends on what comes up. Like, what are the sayings that are going to come up? Are they traditional ones where it says never or no, or like, I don't know. We have to look those up. Like, what does it currently say? Are we using those? Or are we like coming up with the executive type of, feel good type of answers, like just totally new answers? Or maybe there's an infinite number of, like, if you use ChatGPT to come up with, prompt, like if your question prompts it and then it does the little visual like an 8-ball, but it comes back with a ChatGPT answer. That could be helpful.
There we go. So we're getting into good ideas now. Yeah. It's crazy. I used to sit next to, this is funny. I used to be in a co-working space in Boston like 3-4 years ago. And there was a massive working space across the hall from us. And I talked to the people there and they said, we made it social media for some person, but it turns out it was Mel Robbins. And I just, I read a bit of her book earlier this week, the 5-second rule, which I think is pretty fascinating because the whole concept is basically like commit to taking action. Mm-hmm. It's not so much about which direction you take action in, it's the fact that you actually do something instead of sitting on it. And I wonder if like that's the appeal of a Magic 8-Ball decision maker app, because it'll decide what to do and you can just focus on the doing.
Yeah, I like that. Again, comes back to what are the answers it's giving you? Is it going to give you a limited number of answers that are like, yes, do it, or no, don't do it, randomized type of thing? Or is it like, I think AI is the answer to this. Like, if you have an AI involved in the decision and the answers it gives you, and it could somehow know the business that you're in and that, have a track record of something, like the data set that's built in, where you ask it a question, it's going to give you an intelligent answer based on the track record. It's just like a ChatGPT answer that's based on, other data. But this is based on internal, metrics of some sort. If that were possible, which, as the rate we're going might be possible at some point, that could be really interesting because you don't know what answer you're going to get. It's not a limited number of, yes, just definitely or no never, and then there's like 8 other answers. So you shake it again. It's like, no, when I shake this, I could get like a magical answer.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So, I mean, we're kind of pivoting over into making this a good idea, but that in theory kind of negates the whole magic 8-ball and that it's giving you something random.
Like AI is
in the positive sense. Yeah. In the positive sense.
AI today is sort of magic. I mean, there's actual people that know what they're doing. They're, developing this stuff, but to the lay people like myself, it's like, let's see what this can do. I mean, wave the wand. And even in like, I think it's Adobe, there's a platform where that has a little like magic wand symbol where that's where you click if you want the AI to do its magic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting. We're messing with a little at Pinchforce specifically. We're messing with a little bit of AI, specifically like training bots on our project data, which is fascinating because then we can query the bot, like how long will it take to do this thing, and historically have we stayed within this estimate or gone over, and it's not quite magic 8-ball decision making, but AI is predominantly just probability, right? Mm-hmm. It's counting a bunch of things, like looking historically at like what those trends indicated and betting that those trends will continue.
Yeah.
So in your respect, like the magic 8-ball branding is really just a hook. If there was proper AI behind it, into giving executives unlimited access to their current information to use instantaneously to make decisions, which is actually kind of interesting.
So as I'm thinking more about this, what makes sense to me, because it's so novel that it can't really, to me, I wouldn't think it could live on its own as its own app that people come back to over and over. But it could be a great way for these AI technology companies to showcase what their product can do as a novelty, right? So they can use this app that's created just for the novelty effect to get attention from their audience. And then their audience is like, this is cool, this is fun. Yeah, OpenAI made this or whatever, or whoever made it. And they use it, it's fun. It's like a trick, right? Like a market trick. In fact, there was like SharkSpring. I don't know if you're familiar with SharkSpring.
Yeah.
Automation platform. They had back in the day, many years ago when they were competing with HubSpot and everybody else, they've sort of carved their niche now. They had this same type of trick. It was like a magic, email workflow. And they want to show how their product was just as good or better than HubSpot. And so you would type a certain thing and hit submit, and then it would send emails, back and forth, and you would do this whole trick. So like, they used it as sort of a novelty. You're not going to, you could use that. You will use the capability, of course, but, most people don't use the full on capability of the platform anyways, but it showcased the capability, and it attracted.
It was a draw. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a little, it's like if you're a salesperson, it's just like a little trick that you use in your sales presentation or even in a inbound lead or whatever. But I think if they were to design an app like this, hook it to their technology so it will do something very similar to what a traditional 8-ball would do, but give you unlimited answers, show that it's learning every time. That could be really cool. Almost to the point where people will come back to it as its own standalone thing, but for sure, novelty to get people interested, bigger thing that you're doing there.
Interesting. So it's like Magic 8-ball app is the marketing hook for an AI product. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. And so if you're already building the technology of the not if then, but like just call it, late if then scenario, you put this in, I get this back. Then you just have to build a visual on the app, connected. Obviously it's going to be more hard than that, but it could be really fun. And you can launch it at your next conference or whatever, and give everybody,
an 8-ball. Yeah,
an 8-ball, and maybe even what do they call those? The iWatch, Apple Watches. As a gift, because that's where we're at today. But
that's an interesting idea.
Yeah,
but definitely a hook.
App install.
Yeah, and everyone sees it, so everyone wants to play with it because like everyone around them has it at the same time. And to your point, if people are all getting different answers, like they're sharing what answers they got. That's pretty compelling. That's
but I think what it does for me is kind of going down the AI rabbit hole, is it confirms this idea that where I think AI is going, as a product for solving problems more at scale for individual companies is being basically embedded inside of their private internal data, like you were talking about. Finish for it. I think that's the solution, because I have clients right now that we're talking about it. And it's like, if we could, you're talking about, to create more efficiencies. I think that's a perfect first use case. If you go inside a company and say, there's all this data that's sort of floating around, if we could compile that into a narrative, that's called forth with a prompt, there's a lot that you can do with that internally. Now it gets kind of crazy of who has access to it, because you don't really know yet
who's going to ask what.
Like, who can ask of it what, right? So it's not only just like, don't include social security numbers. It's like, well, all the data's there. It seems harmless, but if I ask it of it this way, it can be harmful. So it's going to get real interesting, for sure. But I think that's a huge use for companies to utilize internally.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're kind of coming a little full circle back to decision making again, which is where the app, I think, started. And that's the one big question I want to ask you, because you do a lot of consulting, you work with a lot of senior execs. Like, you've probably seen a lot of folks take way too long to make a critical decision at one point or another. And I imagine that was the impetus behind this really, really awful business idea.
Yeah.
Like, just get someone to make a decision so the paralysis isn't holding up everything else. But do you think there's value in something like that? Obviously not a magic 8-ball, but almost like a technical machine that would make it a lot easier for people to arrive at a decision faster so they can start taking action.
Yeah, I think for the business owners and CEOs and leaders that are successful already, growing, they typically don't have trouble making decisions, which is why they are where they are. That's not that's not the whole pie, but there's a big piece of it. I think that a big piece of so I work kind of in the mid-market, which is sometimes you'll have CEOs that are installed, and sometimes you'll have owners that are now CEOs, that grew up the company from scratch. So it's an interesting place to play. And usually the smaller percentage of successful owners that started from scratch is usually smaller, because most of the owners are the bottleneck of why they can't get. I mean, that's just
for this reason, right?
Almost 90% of their businesses aren't mid-sized. They're just so small. It's because of the owner's bottleneck for one reason or another. In fact, a buddy of mine is a consultant. All he does is basically go around these small companies and tell them they're the bottleneck. I mean, it's like, yeah, we'll just operate everything, but like at the end of the day, you're the problem. Like, it's not that hard. But yeah, so I think the antithesis of that is hiring and putting in place the right people that can own their positions and giving them the ability to make decisions, probably more so than even you could as a CEO. CEOs, so aside from the owner that's the bottleneck, so let's say they succeeded past that and they're not that person, or the CEO that's been installed and they're good. They typically, what I see, are always firefighting. They're always just putting out fires. So they're still sort of working in survival mode. They're not working in growth mode. So generally that comes back to not having the right talent in place, the right people, right seats kind of thing. And charging them with the challenge of owning their role. I mean, to the point of like, if this decision goes bad, then this thing goes bad. And then living in the seat of, okay, I'm going to sit, and Jeff Bezos, everybody knows, so I'll give it as an example, but it's not the same. But in part, it kind of is. It's like living in that visionary seat where you're like already at one or even two steps ahead of the company, so that you're sort of leading from the front, bringing people along. And you are going to fight some fires, but it's not your whole job. It shouldn't be, But I unfortunately see most CEOs that are just constantly putting out fires and constantly, having board meetings and trying to describe that, look, we're still alive, everything's going to still be okay. And they're always begging for forgiveness kind of thing. But what they should be doing is putting the right people in place, tasking them with that, and moving into vision. But the problem with it is that most CEOs don't have a vision. Having a vision is a very difficult thing. Like, it just is, because it's also difficult because of all this pressure, both from the bottom and from the top or the side with board or shareholders or stakeholders. It's like, and everybody has an opinion of what should happen. And if you or a Jeff Bezos, where you're like, I don't really care, you can fire me or whatever, but this is what we're doing. There's very, very, very few people that want to take a stab at something like that. So you end up in this sort of 8% where you're just kind of rocking along. So for that, I think this app will be perfect.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's what I was thinking too. I wonder if a reason for that constant obsession with putting out fires is partially because folks don't know what else to do next, or they don't want to make a decision to do the next thing because they don't want it to be wrong. Like, I think there's a major fear of being wrong. And realistically speaking, the amount of bad decisions, I mean, we're talking about bad ideas here, but the amount of bad decisions you could make and not die is way bigger than the amount of bad decisions you can make that will be fatal to you or your business.
So true.
So, coming back to this app, the odds are in your favor. Sometimes you just need a nudge to get over that hump and out into growth world.
I think my kind of advice comes back to empowering talented people to take risks. And I think how you do that is by building in a culture, and so sort of leading from the front, taking risks yourself, showing that you're putting yourself out there too, and putting in systems. So say, this is how we're going to do it. First, the idea has to come to a small group of people that we vet the idea. And then if we all agree to some degree that it needs to take the first step, then we take the first step. And then here's the process of how we work through this, whether it's a marketing risk or a sales risk or a brand risk or whatever. We're going to work through, kind of a mental model of sorts to take us from here to where we think it's going to end up. And we stay in close communication with everyone. That is a much more viable approach than not being a culture of risk takers, or not being always looking to say, we're going to just survive. And that's not what it really looks like to a lot of companies, because some companies have good cash, et cetera, but really
that's what it is.
Yeah.
Maintenance mode. Yeah. Maintenance mode. We're just cleaning the windows. We're not building a wing.
Yes. For real.
Yeah. So, all right. So, we've talked about a terrible app that could result in a lot of bad things, a lot of bad decisions in theory, but could also do some good, both by accelerating the path to adoption for artificial intelligence, your idea, and potentially helping people, particularly senior executives, get out of their own way a little bit, and move into the things that they probably know they should be doing, but don't have a nudge to make sure that it happens.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of interesting, like back to the novelty concept, like a lot of interesting inroads to good ideas, like spurring on good efforts and good intentions with an app like this, because you've got their attention. It's interesting. It's fun. And now where is this going? What AR and AI, like, where is this going to take you to better decision making? Right. I can think of a whole host of people who could use this as a marketing gimmick, even if it was just the traditional 8-ball answers, because they're basically saying, here's our philosophy of how you should manage, how you should lead as a CEO. You should go from here to there. And so let's use the gimmick to get us thinking about it. Open your mind to, oh yeah, there is a problem here. And of course they can insert their methodology and move forward.
Another idea.
Yeah, there's lots of people, sales coaches, lots of coaching, business coaches, personal coaches. I can see it being let's open your mind to the possibility. And by utilizing the app or the 8-ball, it takes it off of the person and puts it on the app third-party thing that has no personal, attachment to a result. And so it's sort of like, well, it doesn't really matter what it says. I can choose whether I want to go with it or not. That's the perfect first step to get them to open their mind up to new ideas.
Yeah, there you go. And maybe even creating a vision, right?
Creating a what?
Maybe even creating a vision, like you said.
Yes, for real. I mean, I would love to see that happen. I think that there's a lot more, because you're talking about DNA. You're talking about like, someone's got to be wired a certain way. I mean, some people are really very in their box. A lot of people, even some that are outside don't have or share a vision with someone else. And then there's money involved, and that makes things real crazy.
Yeah. I mean, my general philosophy, I think, if you're leading a business, you're acutely aware of the problems the customers you serve have. So even if you can't see like a totally different future, you can see the current state and you can find a way to make it better. And the way to make it better is your vision. Even if it's only like an ultimately near-term vision. And a lot of companies that aren't particularly creative do really, really well by focusing on making those small incremental changes.
Yeah.
But I think what we see more often than not is folks know there's something they have to do. They just, they don't want to do it, or they want to put out fires, to your point.
Yeah. It's easier to put out fires because they look, I solved this problem. I'm valuable.
Yeah.
But I'm still valuable. And this took my salary up another 10% this year, but if you actually have to take a full on risk on something that could go south, well, I don't know. I kind of like my salary going up 10, 20% every year. I don't want it to go down or cut in half. Or get rid of me, but then I don't know. And I'm sort of at this place myself personally, like I'll be 45 in September. When I hit 50, 55, I don't want to look back at my 30s and 40s and say, I really should have gone for it. I should have taken the risk, the bigger risk and gone for it. I knew I had it in me, but I did. That's going to be like crushing.
Yeah.
Because what are you going to do that?
Well, I'm going to send you an 8-ball then, and you're going to have to ask it that every day. What should I do?
Let's do it.
You also got to send me your skincare regimen because you don't look your age at all. Nicely done.
Come on. That's just my AI filter.
Oh yeah, sure. There's a machine making this all happen.
And I really look like an old man.
Well, dude, this is a blast. Thank you so much for all the good ideas. I think we created something. I'm grateful to have you on.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks so much.
All right. See you.